My name's Steve and I love people who make things.
You might need to take off your trousers, and we see...
A number of times people have asked me to take off my trousers in a workshop hand. They sit at the heart of our communities, spreading wealth across the country.
I look forward to Mondays.
I love Mondays too.
And I'm going to die here. I'm never going to retire.
The isolation is great. No crowds apart from the tourists and sheep.
And the occasional podcaster like me. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
These are uncertain economic times. Keep our manufacturers alive and we'll thrive.
We all learn how to do everything here because there's so few of us left.
It is becoming a little harder to get young kids out of college that want to get their hands dirty and learn some of these very traditional art forms.
Join me as we compile a list of the greatest items made in the UK and hear stories from inside our factories.
My father has a phrase, he said, you should plan like you're going to live forever and live like you're going to die tomorrow, which I think is a very good way of looking at it.
We need you to live much longer than that, Martin. Welcome to the factory next door and welcome to a country lane on the outskirts of Leominster in Herefordshire. The last time we were in this kind of neck of the woods, you and I were hanging out with the team at Morgan Car Company by Malvern Hills. It really is very, very beautiful around here. Rolling green hills. So today we are here to celebrate, well, a craft that's been around since medieval times. The oak-framed home. Something a bit different for us. I'm super excited. Just in front of us is a beautiful oak beamed building, and behind it I know there are a collection of workshops filled with carpenters and wood. I cannot wait to get in there. Whilst I say hello at reception, have a listen to what's coming up in this week's show.
But we used to have people come down the drive to find the two brothers that were suddenly making oak frames again.
Is it simply cost that meant beautiful homes like this stopped being made?
No, so I think...
What made you leave bar work and come and work with wood?
It's more of a personal job, like I'm actually fabricating something that's going to be around for a lot longer.
I loved my dad desperately. I basically forced my dad to give me a job. But in the back of my mind, I just wanted to be with him.
I love the idea that this house is, you know, it's about to be born.
Yeah.
Have a good life, house.
Nobody seems that bothered about whether we live or die. My name is Mary Albright and I'm the Creative Director at Border Oak Design and Construction in Herefordshire.
Mary, I'm super excited to be here. Where are we going now?
If we go down the side here, Steve, we'll take you into the workshop and I'll run you through the process of how we make our oak frames.
Let's go. Wow, it is so big. It's so big. It was hidden.
Big things,
we walked around a little kind of iron building and we then just phased into a giant L-shaped warehouse. It's enormous.
So these are our workshops where we make all of our oak framed houses, and at the front section we're here now, this is the start point, if you like. So the guys here are what we call marking up on virgin timber, green oak, and they're translating the drawings that we've produced in the offices onto the oak frame so that we can make the cuts through the hand tables as the frame works through the workshop.
As you would expect, huge chunks of oak. I mean, I would imagine this to be, what is that, 30 foot long?
Probably around about 22, 23, because that would be the maximum structural length that we normally work to, so around about there.
Okay, and then a guy with a forklift truck is really aiming
here.
for us.
We're in high vis, it'll be fine. There'll be no kind of legal case necessary here. So every house has probably 100, 150 odd drawings so that we know how to make it, how to build it, and the detailing. And then all of those marks, cuts, and detailing will get translated directly onto the timber here. With a big marker pen, but they use all these old-fashioned geometry tools. But if the guys make a mistake here, it'll be made wrong at the end, and so there's a lot of pressure at this end to make sure that we put the right felt tip pen mark in the right place.
It all comes down to a felt tip pen mark.
Basically, yeah.
So it's presumably it's a bit like a jigsaw.
Effectively a 3D jigsaw, but in multiple facets. So it's a skeleton, if that helps kind of listeners visualise what we're doing. So we're making a 3D skeleton in flat form here, and then test assembling it at the end before it leaves the workshop and goes to site where it'll be erected by another group of carpenters as the kind of embodied skeleton ready to be lived in later on. So my father, John Greene, had always loved oak-framed houses, and his family were publicans, so they were often living in old oak-framed houses. So he kind of started thinking, oh, that's interesting how that's been made. And there was a house in the village where he was born that kind of really captured his imagination, and it was completely oak-framed from about 1380. Loved it, but also really passionately felt it was a really good construction system. So it was using a natural material that kind of locked in loads of carbon. It lasted a really, really long time, but it was beautiful. You didn't have to hide it or kind of implant other things to make it look better. It was just beautiful on its own. And I think he probably became obsessed to the point where he couldn't not do it. But then in his job as a structural engineer, he was selling steel-framed agricultural buildings, and went to a farmer's setup who was having a new steel building to do the survey on where the building was going to go, and realised that the guy was going to knock down or probably burn a medieval hall house. And so Dad said, oh, I know a bit about oak frames, you know, that's a really important building, it's kind of nationally significant, and can we put the steel frame somewhere else maybe? And the farmer said, no, it needs to go there because that's in the yard, that's where the cows are going to be. And then the farmer very cannily said, well, if you love it so much, John, you buy it, take it away and do something with it. So in a fit of panic, Dad did do that and paid £1,000, which apparently in the early 70s was kind of king's ransom. So he then realised not only did he have to take the building down, he had to explain to my mum what he'd spent £1,000 on.
It's an extraordinary story.
It's a bit weird. You wouldn't be able to do it now, would you? It's kind of one of those strange...
A farmer says, I don't want that medieval hall on my land.
Yeah, and my dad's passion and panic.
And your dad I'll take it.
I'll have
I'll
that.
buy it from you. How did your mum not kill him?
I think she's been tempted many times over the years, but Dad had lots of ideas, and so I think my mum knew what he was like. So the frame got taken down by my dad and my uncle Mark. Dad spent a couple of years putting that old barn back up together. Went to the planners to say, I've got a nice barn in my orchard, can I convert it to live in? And they said, you can, John, great job, you've saved an important building, it's a really beautiful job, but you can't live in it in the sense that we don't want you to put kitchens and bathrooms into the old barn. You'll need to put those on the side in an extension because we want the barn in its purest form to exist as you've saved it. So Dad said, okay, yeah, that's fine, we can put an extension. And the conversation somehow came around to the fact that they would only allow him to have an extension if it was oak framed, using the exact same techniques that he had kind of demonstrated on the barn. So Dad said, well, nobody makes oak frames anymore. You know, it's been like a dead industry for 250 years. There's nobody that can, where would I get the oak from? Who would make it? And the planner, it's hard to imagine in those days that things were quite so collaborative, but he said, well, I can see the bits you've fixed and you've made, so I suggest you and Mark make a new frame to go on the side of the barn. So all of these things kind of coming together, Dad thought, well, I love oak framing. I have made an oak frame I've repaired the barn. I will do that, but I will need to make it a business. So he built the extension, and then that became the first border oak project. And I don't know how, because in those days there was no internet, no kind of emails. I don't know how word gets out, but we used to have people come down the drive to find the two brothers that were suddenly making oak frames again. So as you go around, so the timber comes in through that great big door there. So it gets unloaded into the yard. We check it. So we've got timber graders here that check the quality of what we're receiving.
And what will those graders be looking for when the timber's coming in?
Primarily things to do with any claw marks from the sawmills, knots per face. The wood we're using is called boxed heart. So at the end of each beam, they'll see there's a circle, and that's the middle of the tree. And the boxed heart needs to be as straight as we can make it. So they'll check each end of the timber to make sure that the boxed heart is in roughly the same place.
Oh, show me this. So let me just look here at the end of one of these ginormous logs on.
So can you see there's the boxed heart? So that's the very middle of the tree. So if you imagine that tree is actually, the girth of it is significantly larger than the piece I've got here. We use the boxed heart because that's the most structurally stable piece. and then that box heart needs to run pretty much.
So on the end, we've got the rings of the tree and the very centre of all the rings. What would you call it, a box heart? I love that.
The box heart is this part, so it basically means you've got the heart of the tree in a box.
And should we be able to see that on the other end?
Yeah, so it'll be roughly, not exactly, but roughly in the same place. And on a piece as long as this, that's quite hard to do.
I know.
So when we grade the timber, we're looking at whether there's a big difference, because as the wood dries out, it's actually the job it's doing is getting stronger and stronger because it's kind of tightening itself on its own joints. But if that boxed heart is wildly different on the two ends, it wants to twist. So as it dries out, that'll just kind of make the movement kind of a bit more unpredictable. Not insurmountable, just a bit unpredictable.
Can we have a look at the other end then? It's a long walk.
There you go.
Oh yeah, there you go,
So
and
they're
there it
pretty
is.
much the same place.
Wow.
And when the guys, they'll do a lot by eye, because experience and kind of familiarity with your product does actually help you shortcut lots of these kind of things. But they will often spend a lot of time looking straight down the beam, and you can see those two are they're pretty true all the way through. And if they weren't, then we probably would decline to use them, because there's no point having 20 guys hand making something if you know your original piece isn't quite right.
So we're sat down in a showroom,
Yes.
which is beautiful, and it's just stunning oak everywhere. We've got an open plan kitchen that we're sat in. Is it simply cost that meant beautiful homes like this stopped being made?
No, so I think that the reason oak framing died out was probably to do with classicism. So as the European kind of fashions came forward, the kind of provincialness of green oak framing, basically making a house out of a tree, became less fashionable. So I think that was why it probably died a death. And then bringing it back it wasn't the cost of it so much. It was more the kind of alienness of it and the kind of trusting a living material to make a house rather than concrete blocks and bricks.
So we got a bit too snobby about living in...
Yeah, it's kind of an embarrassment to live in. That's why you see a lot of farmhouses and other houses, they've kind of fronted themselves in something else, whether it be kind of like a Georgian...
How it flips, because now obviously
exactly, yeah.
they look like amazing kind of buildings, which everyone kind of
And I think
loves.
it always played on my dad's mind, though, that it was fashion that killed it off, because he always made us super conscious of whether it was still relevant. So don't just build an old-fashioned looking house because that's what we've always done. How can you make oak framing and bespoke house building relevant? What do people want? How do people live?
Whenever I speak to people about buildings, often it's about extensions to factories and things like that. Unsurprisingly, planning, regulation comes up. This is the first time on the show we've had the pleasure of chatting to someone who's actually in the building trade. Is planning the thing that keeps you awake at night?
Yes. It didn't used to, though, Steve. I used to really enjoy planning, and I used to like the collaboration, the creative element of it, and the kind of legacy of doing the right thing for the right reasons in the right place. And then for somehow, and it's really hard to put your finger on how it happened or why it happened, it became adversarial, kind of very conflict-driven and expensive, incredibly expensive, for almost no benefit to the project itself or the kind of the place where the project might be. And now I really don't enjoy planning at all. It takes a long time. I mean, I've got planning applications that are on allocated sites. So in theory, in principle, they've been agreed that they should have houses on them. Often they're brownfield sites, so there's an element of restitution and repair and kind of biodiversity enhancement to us doing the project. I've got 2 that have been in planning for, one's over 5 years, one's coming up to 5 years. And as a small business where my pipeline relies on that work and we've invested in the site, I've got 70, 80 people relying on me turning a planning approval into a project.
How do you have the patience for that?
So I don't have the patience, which is why I now use planning consultants, and they have patience but strategy. Whereas I felt that if you were wanting to do the right thing and a good thing, that would be enough. But the bureaucracy of planning is almost overwhelming.
Hi, I want to quickly jump in here because I am delighted to say that our show has a new partner, and one with a long history of helping manufacturers optimise their operations. AVEVA is a leader in industrial intelligence. It was founded almost 50 years ago in Cambridge. Today, its software connects and empowers people to improve plant productivity, sustainability, business agility. And if you're interested in manufacturing, which I'm guessing you are if you're hanging out with me, AVEVA's got a newsletter. Do sign up for it. Go to www.aveva.com/factory. I'll put the link in the show notes. My thanks to AVEVA for supporting the factory next door and for supporting our makers.
Here's another great big piece here.
A great big piece here, and this, we're seeing it start to take shape here.
Yes.
We're seeing pieces joisted together,
Yep.
and then the edge has kind of been very decoratively, beautifully.
So those
Is that chiselled away?
So that's So if you come and have a look, they're just taking off the marks. Just
lovely.
a really
So
nice detail.
It's a lovely detail. So that the very edge of the beam is actually kind of there's a triangle carved into it, which
we've
is
taken
lovely.
the corner off, and then we kind of this little. I love these. The little like a little kick out, which just takes you back to the square again, which is just a really nice detail. And it's one of the reasons why we still make oak frames by hand, because it's very hard to do with a machine.
Troy, are you spending all of your time doing these beautiful details?
The middle section's done with a hand plane, but the edges and the actual curves are done by hand.
Have you always worked with wood?
No, I've been here about 10 years. About 10 years. I came from bar work. I worked behind the bar before I came here.
What made you leave bar work and come and work with wood?
It's more of a personal job, if you know what I mean. Rather than serving the customers, it's like I'm actually fabricating something that's going to be around for a lot longer, if you know what I mean. So
you quite like the fact that your handiwork will be around for decades to come.
It's nice to know that I've had a part of the countryside, if you know what I mean. So when I'm going along with the kids, I can say I put that up. I did my bit, do you know what I mean? So
that's lovely.
That's
yeah.
why I do it as well. Yeah.
Thanks for talking to me.
When Dad died, we had lovely letters from like old clients that we hadn't heard of for kind of 10, 20 years, and they all said the same thing about how much they had admired Dad and kind of liked him, but also how important it was that he had helped them kind of put their little bit of something on the countryside, that it would be there for hundreds of years, and that they really valued that. And I think that's quite a lovely thing. Dad he'd have been very touched, but he might have been a bit embarrassed. But he'd have really loved the fact that people felt as strongly as he did about oak-framed houses.
That's really very beautiful. If you don't mind me asking, when did your dad pass away?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
okay.
so not very long.
Yeah. I'm sure he's very proud of what you're doing, taking it forward.
That's a good question. That does trouble me sometimes. I think he would be. I think he would feel that we'd been dealt a pretty tough hand with Brexit, COVID, and then we've got a phosphate moratorium in Herefordshire because the river's polluted. It's very hard to get planning. Anyway, I think he would have thought, they're doing a pretty good job considering the obstacles we've got. I think he would very much like to still be here building houses for people. He was a bit irked that his time was being cut short. But I think most of us feel the essence of what he wanted to do, which was to build family homes for Herefordshire families built by Herefordians. Obviously that kind of spread out, kind of went global eventually, but that essence, we all hold on to that quite strongly, that we are making homes for people.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right across the country. And did I see that actually, I mean, you're even looking at doing things in America, aren't you?
Yeah, so we've been getting a lot of inquiries from America, and they don't have any planning problems there. They can literally, if you own something, it seems like you can build. But also, I think they really value craft, which is the same reason we've done a lot of projects in Japan, and they have a huge appreciation of craft and natural materials and craftsmanship. And I think the Americans kind of value it as well, which is... so we've done a lot of projects in Japan, quite a few in America, across Europe. So it's kind of strange, isn't it, that you could make something in deep, dark Herefordshire and then it ends up in the kind of Belgian countryside with a thatched roof.
Hi, my name's Leo and my dad is Steve, host of this show. People often don't realise he does the factory next door all by himself. The recording, the editing, even the illustrations on Instagram. He's mildly talented, but he still needs a large amount of external validation. I guess as he grows up, he'll learn to be more self-confident like me. But until then, it'd be great if you could star the show on Apple or Spotify. Maybe even leave a nice review. Thanks! I'll let you get back to the show now.
When the frame's been test assembled in the workshop, make sure it's all put together correctly and all fits beautifully, then they put in their carpenter's marks, which are based on Roman numerals, and it's basically a chiselled set of drawings that only belong to that carpenter, so they'll all have their own alphabet, if you like, and then they tag the frame, and it's only then that they say, right, that's good enough, that's how we would like it to be sent out, and then it gets dismantled again.
So sorry to jump in there, so we're in a courtyard looking at various pieces, but I'm fascinated by the Roman markings. Is that like an autograph they put into the wood?
Yeah, so technically it would be traceable to Border Oak and to potentially those carpenters. So it's kind of an amalgamated set of markings, like I, IV, all those kind of notes. But you can also have kind of strange J's and all sorts of things. But the primary reason is that when it gets to site, the carpenters who unpack the frame, they will know which piece goes next to each other because the carpenter's marks are sequenced, so they relate to one another.
I love that.
But then the frame will come back out here and get packed into, normally by length because that helps for loading, but also in sets, so a truss would be together.
Yep.
So that when they unpack that on site, they will know which bits are going to go next to each other.
Without being rude, a bag of bits, really.
It's basically Meccano for grown men, yeah. Business-wise, the things that really worry all of us, I guess, are the kind of lack of understanding or maybe lack of support for the kind of things we do and the kind of business we are. So by that I mean small businesses, family businesses, people making things in England, in Britain, and nobody seems that bothered about whether we live or die. And that's been a bit of a shock. Maybe I feel it more now that Dad's not here and that it's my job to keep all those people employed. But it definitely feels like there's more of an orchestrated lack of interest. Inheritance tax is one issue. So my sister and I obviously inherited the business when my dad died. But on paper, we have a lot of assets because we've got that big workshop we were looking at. We've got the yard and the offices and we've got building plots. So on paper, they're worth a lot of money. But that doesn't mean we're making lots of money. It just means we're in a business where your assets are, you saw the stock we carry. We have a lot of materials.
Yeah. And you can't sell off a chunk. You can't be like, oh well, I'll get rid of this stock room.
Exactly. I'll to pay the inheritance tax. I will get rid of the workshop. Oh no, now I can't build anything. So it seems a really strange thing that they would pick on family businesses and that kind of longevity that we offer, which family businesses I think are proven to kind of have that kind of handover and continuity and kind of social responsibility for keeping going. And if I was going to sell the business, fine. I appreciate you'd have to pay tax like everybody else does. I'm not saying I don't agree with paying tax. I just don't think you should pay tax on a business because somebody died. I don't want to avoid paying tax. I just want to be able to protect the business as well.
And allow it to keep going.
Allow it to keep going, but also kind of allow it to have a level playing field against other types of business. So, big corporate entities don't have they won't have a death duty where they have to pay purely because somebody died. But also, are they a safer pair of hands than we are? So my dad had it for 45 years. He literally started it from nothing. Is a big corporation a safer pair of hands for staff than we are? I don't think that's true. But then that's one thing. Then they add on a national insurance contribution, which then means we have to sell probably 2 or 3 more houses a year just to cover the extra tax on that, which actually puts jobs at risk because we're now not employing people and we don't want to, if we're having kind of natural losses through retirement or my dad dying, for example, we're not replacing those people because we can't afford to. I'm saying now we are stopping employing people because we can't carry that burden against an uncertain climate elsewhere as well.
In a number of the conversations we've had with manufacturers, some on mic, some off mic, one of the things that has repeatedly come up is a slight confusion or slight puzzlement, I think would be a polite way of putting it, of the lack of experience amongst people in the government who have not just been on the shop floor for a photo op, but have been there because they're leading a company or they own a company or they are advising a manufacturer and actually recognise decisions they make, the not just the one knock-on effect, but two further down the line and the actual implications of what those decisions will mean.
I recognise that feeling, and I think that you wouldn't be allowed to run a business without experience or somehow having learnt experience, so that you got to the point where you were able to run the business and have all, kind of sight over all the working parts and all the people that you needed to look after. But politics doesn't seem to be that way inclined. But there is a way around it. You could say, I don't have that knowledge. Can you work with me so I can understand the picture that you're operating within? But there's never that kind of reach out, or it doesn't seem to be kind of in depth enough to kind of. I would love a politician who has authority over making policy to come and sit with us, work with us, look at our numbers, and really, get an understanding of what it's like to employ people, what it's like to make things, what it's like when you're trying to sell things. I don't feel there's anybody that kind of knows that, and yet we get told what to do.
Can we get a government official to come down?
Oh, I'd love that. Anybody's very welcome, and I promise I'd be nice. And I really love the idea that we can make things better. If anybody's listening and they would like to come, they'd be very welcome. I'd put on cake and sandwiches, and I'd give them a good day.
There you go. The offer's out there.
Yeah,
including cake.
Always cake.
Mary, I'll be honest. The site is. Just keeps going on and on. I'm surprised at how big it is. I guess when I pulled up off the road, you don't really have a sense of how enormous the site is here.
So Dad started in a porter cabin just there, and we didn't own all of the site. And then as we got a bit bigger, or people kind of trusted us to build a few houses, we swapped over and we bought the front yard, and we didn't own the backyard. But when Dad first started, they had no loo. Don't ask. I don't know. They had no kind of running water. But this.
I won't ask.
Don't ask. It's probably one of those things not worth imagining for listeners. So under these tarpaulins, there'll be oak frames. Do you want to come and have a?
Let's have a little nosy under these covers.
House that's going to be put up just down the road, so probably 10 minutes away. Lovely manor house.
Something extraordinary about looking at. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of pallets, big, huge pallets, but pallets of wood all piled up, and you're thinking, that's going to be a house.
Yeah, it's surreal, isn't it? Kind of, I always think that when the wood comes in, like it comes into us on a lorry, when it leaves, it'll be somebody's house. That's quite kind of a mind-blowing concept. But then you think of all the hours of work that went into making this.
The hours of work. I'm looking at kind of one of the pallets here, and the end of the pallet. So we're looking at the ends of all of these pieces of wood, and it's all carved little kind of joints.
Yeah, so these are tenons,
and nooks and crannies, which have all been carved into the wood. It's an extraordinary sight.
And if you see now, all of these tenons are different. So it's the kind of thing that people say, oh, you could make it by a machine, but you could, but it wouldn't be this good.
I wonder what this house will be called when it's put up. I love the idea that this house is, it's about to be born.
Yeah.
Have a good life, house. Do you ever get a moment between kind of juggling, planning, being in the workshop, kind of looking at the amazing work they're doing, dealing with new regulations, wondering about the latest policy decision? Do you ever get a moment to yourself to think, actually, I'm doing something amazing?
Ooh, I'm not really that way inclined, I don't think. Do I ever think back? Not really. I live in a border oak house, and so every day I'm very grateful for the type of house I live in. And I loved my dad desperately, and I love what he did. And I love that he's the only person he literally is the pioneer of the revival of green oak framing, and he made a brand from nothing, and completely heartfelt. He just felt that was a really good way of building, and that a nice place to live. So sometimes I get moments like that. but if you have too many of those, sometimes you forget you've actually got to make stuff and build stuff. But I know I'm lucky because I did a bit of work in London, and I knew I didn't like that. And when I came back, I basically forced my dad to give me a job. But in the back of my mind, I just wanted to be with him. I just wanted to work for him. I wanted to learn from him. And although he thought it was a terrible idea because he does the idea of nepotism where there's my lovely daughter, she's good at colouring in. He didn't like it. So then I spent a lot of my working life trying to prove to him that it was the right decision, that I was a good worker.
How many years did you get to work together?
26. Pretty decent. Everything was have a go, have a bit of fun, never hurt anybody along the way, take people with you. You won't make yourself feel better by putting other people down. But also that kind of joy of life and going, you can have a go. It might not work, but it probably will if you enjoy it and you love it and you put your soul into it. It will probably work. And that's that. I know I'm lucky to have had someone show me that was how you worked.
Well, Border Oak has certainly worked, hasn't it? What an amazing company.
That's
Had
very
an
kind of
amazing
you.
workop. Thank you so much for taking
I've really
the time
enjoyed
to
meeting you,
chat
Steve.
to me.
Yeah, and thank you for all you do for championing people that make things, whether it be craftsmen or manufacturers. That's I think we all very grateful that you put a celebration element to it. So thank you for that.
Okay, so into our shed of greatness goes the oak framed home. Obviously that can't fit, so the brochure goes in instead. My huge thanks again to Mary and her team for welcoming us in. I do usually leave these places with a deep affection for the people we meet, and I really did on this occasion. In 2 weeks' time, you and I are heading out for another adventure, number 38 on our list of the greatest things we make here. And it will be the rocket engine. I think it's going to be fun. I very much look forward to hanging out with you again. For now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're happy. Until next time, bye. My thanks again to our new partner, AVEVA. They're such a good fit for the show because they're in the business of helping manufacturers, and they've been doing it for more than 50 years. A leader in industrial intelligence, AVEVA's software connects and empowers people to improve plant productivity, sustainability, and business agility. Just a reminder that AVEVA's got a newsletter, and if you're interested in manufacturing, please do sign up for it. Go to www.aveva.com/factory. Again, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. My thanks to AVEVA for supporting the factory next door.